Hey everybody, it's Anthony from Legit Football, the producer of 30 Minutes of Football, with Jimmy here at NFL_stats on Twitter.
Yeah, how's it going?
Everyone's probably wondering what this is. Just a random podcast comes out of nowhere. This is the 11 Yards podcast that we decided to start. It's going to be stat-based, where we talk about nothing but numbers. And I'm really excited to be here with Jimmy, who is a regular guest on 30 Minutes of Football. And so let's get started. How are you, Jimmy?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, you asked me to do this podcast, and obviously NFL Stats. That's the Twitter account I run. So obviously anything stats related comes pretty naturally to me. Just talking about different NFL stats, different leaders in the NFL world as of now. So I'm excited to talk through that with somebody. And I think stats always need some sort of context. I think I post stats a lot, but people are like, "What about this? What about this?" I mean, there's always context around stuff that you can
Right, of
talk
course.
about, and I'm excited to get started with this. So
Yeah, I'm a big fan of stats. So, like when I'm playing Madden, sometimes I'll like
yeah,
I play Madden franchise and I'm all about the stats. I'll go check top stats. I'll it's a lot of fun. I like to make sure one player gets like the most targets, and I try to beat NFL records and stuff like that because it's fun to me. And in real football, that's where the excitement gets real, especially if you're a fantasy football fan. You
right.
see numbers go up. You want to start that player, and I think that's really important to discuss these things moving forward. So we're like, who wins MVP? It's always the one with the highest numbers, and so I think we should just get started.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'm gonna put up on a banner. I'm gonna put the top passers this season. We're gonna talk about each one of them. So number one, who do you think number one is? Who do you think is the top passer in the league right now?
I think it's probably up there with Tom Brady. He has probably the most pass attempts.
Close. Tom Brady's actually second with
He's second.
2,547 yards. Patrick
Patrick
Mahomes
Mahomes.
has 2,605 yards right now going into Week 10, and so how do you feel about that? Because they are having a winning season. If he keeps it up, he's on pace to having a pretty good season statistically.
Yeah, 2,605 yards. I mean, it's not uncommon for Patrick Mahomes to be leading the league in passing yards so far. I mean, he's on a even without Tyreek Hill now. It's people were like, "Will he miss Tyreek Hill?" He won't. I mean, Patrick Mahomes will make any wide receiver around him great, and the passing game with Andy Reid, they have it dialed down to a T, and Patrick Mahomes will always get the ball out at the right time for 99.9% of the time. And now they just have a bunch of different weapons that seem to work out for them. McCole Hardman's playing well. Kadarius Toney is coming in and providing a little spark for them. Just a lot of weapons. Not necessarily as good as Tyreek Hill, but I think it's obviously working out for him.
Right, and I feel like because Juju Smith-Schuster's been getting a lot of targets, but he
Right.
didn't start off that way. Travis Kelce is leading in yards for Kansas City and receiving, and it's funny because he's the only tight end in the whole league that gets targeted as much as he does
Mhm.
because he's so reliable as a tight end. Where like Juju Smith-Schuster double covered because he's his only reliable receiver, but that leaves Travis Kelce wide open, especially in the red zone. And I think that he is the reason behind Patrick Mahomes' top passing stats. So
Right.
Tom Brady is second, which
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised because of how Tom Brady's offense has been. It's weird to see him at number two, but he somehow at 2,547 yards. That's a lot.
Yeah. If you look at how many times he throws per game, I'm sure he has the most pass attempts, and I'm not sure what his yards per attempt look like off the top of my head, but um, I know he's been throwing a lot. They can't run the ball, and he's been throwing it 40, 50 times every single game. Uh, but yeah, if you look at that without thinking of anything like that, it's obviously very surprising that he's all the way up there when with the season they seem to be having. So it's definitely a tale of two sides with Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady.
And if we see them play each other, which I don't think we will, I don't think that that's going to be our Super Bowl this year.
Right.
But if it is, then we will be seeing the two top passers. Tom Brady at 45 years old can still throw that ball out. Usually to Mike Evans, who leads in receiving for Tampa Bay. And Tom Brady only has one interception this
Yeah.
season. and 10 touchdowns. So he's second in yards, but he's tied for 16th in touchdowns. So yeah, he's
Yep.
producing on the field, but he's not getting into the end zone, and that's where that production is lacking is scoring.
Right.
Joe
And
Burrow is. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just saying Tom Brady has since week 3 he has at least 40 attempts in every single game with the highest coming this past week with 58. So 58 pass attempts and only 16 points scored. So
Wow,
it's just
wow.
insane.
So, do you think it's the receivers or what's happening there? Why can't they score?
I think it's more so of the fact that everybody knows they're going to be passing. Their rushing game has been nothing so far this season. So I feel like uh, having the unbalanced offense that you do have, I think mixed with some of the drops that Mike Evans has, we know he hasn't been exactly stable so far this season. Chris Godwin's come in on and off at this point this season, but we remember that drop that Mike Evans had. I mean, that was very unfortunate. So looking at the broad terms for that, I think that's part of the reason.
Okay, yeah, and well, to see Tom Brady airing it out like that was pretty cool.
Right.
But Joe Burrow is third with 2,535 yards, not too far from Tom Brady.
No.
A lot of this is Jamar Chase.
Mhm.
A lot of these yards. Who he has 605. So so what's happening there? Can Joe Burrow be Joe Burrow without Jamar Chase? Can he put up those kind of numbers without Jamar Chase?
I with those types of numbers, no, I don't. I think Jamar Chase provides a big spark for the offense. They do have some other weapons in Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon. Obviously, he can receive the ball whenever he's needed to. But uh, with the offensive line at times, I think it's improved slightly. But I think Jamar Chase just helps out so much getting open and getting down the field and having someone reliable for Joe Burrow to pass to consistently. But shout out to T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd as well. They can pop off every game or two, but Jamar Chase is just so consistent. He has been out recently though too, but people do step up when they need to.
Oh yeah, there's this play where T. Higgins jumped like 3 feet into the air and caught a ball that was actually too high, but he caught it and scored. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that was a Jamar Chase move. Like he has like 3 Jamar Chases running around that field, but he just has to
Right.
use them. He last week he got sacked for the 100th time. It was his 100th time being sacked. So I think that offensive line is a lot to do with the lack of production lately. But he still is third in passing, so he's able to get out of pressure and throw the ball as we saw, and that's why he made it to the Super Bowl last year. So if he can get Jamar Chase and that offensive line could be strong, I think Joe Burrow can possibly pass Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes in pass yards.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
No surprise, Josh Allen is in the top 5, 2,403 yards. They had a bye week, right? So that
they have had a bye week so far.
Okay,
So yeah, we do have to take that into account with some of these guys, but got to take what we have so far.
So Josh Allen with the bye week is in 4th. A lot of that is Stefon Diggs, who's 3rd in receiving. We'll get to that with 857 yards. So Josh Allen is out or day to day, but I think he's going to be out. Who's playing? What I can't remember who's replacing him. Who's playing for Josh Allen?
Let's see.
Oh, Case Keenum.
Case Keenum. Yeah,
that's right. So with the production that we've seen Case Keenum throw when he played for the Vikings, he's not an awful quarterback. He's not to the level Josh Allen is, but if he can just throw the ball to Stefon Diggs and have Diggs get the ball, then I think that they can have a pretty decent game. But I have a question. Hypothetically, if Stefon Diggs goes out, can Josh Allen still produce?
I think it's one of those. It's a similar situation. I think he could produce to an extent, but there'll be a lot of miscues. He does have some other guys on his team he can't pass to, but Stefon Diggs, I mean, you just need that reliable wide receiver to have at all times. I mean, Josh Allen can throw it, but the yards after catch that Stefon Diggs can have, the separation that Stefon Diggs can have down the field, I think it helps Josh Allen so much where smart QBs, if nobody's open, then they'll throw the ball away, and that takes down your passing yardage. So if Stefon Diggs isn't there, then there might be more times when that does happen for him.
Right. So Josh Allen, it was 64 attempts, I think, against the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And I think he topped like 350 something yards that game and still lost. So, and of course, that's a whole different conversation because their offense definitely got shut down by the Miami defense. But
Yeah.
the Jets too. It's been weird because we all know that the Bills are juggernauts. We all know that Josh Allen will probably make a run for MVP. But we still have another half of the season left to go. Josh Allen hurt his elbow, so we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah, and
Justin,
I also wanted to say, so Patrick Mahomes has been on a bye. The Bucks have not. Joe Burrow has not as well. So I think the only two that haven't been on a bye on this list is Joe Burrow and Tom Brady. So just to
okay, so
just to think
Patrick
about that.
Mahomes being first with a bye week,
Yeah.
that makes that narrative even better.
Yeah, so
in
he's
my
played
opinion.
8 games, 2,600 yards. So he's averaging over 300 yards per game. So I mean, that's just what Patrick Mahomes does at this point.
Right, of course. Wow.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert is fifth. He also had a bye. 2,254 yards. That is with 351 attempts, 66.4 completion percentage. So Justin Herbert has not been able to do what he was expected to do. But he still knows how to put up numbers. Keenan Allen has been out for a while this season, and I think that it's the same narrative with Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. Without your top receiver, especially in those offenses, it's really hard to produce. But he still made it to the fifth spot. And what's your take?
Yeah, looking at Keenan Allen's only played a couple games. Mike Williams has been on and off. It's impressive that he has been up here. Looking at his stats, he is on pace to have a lot more attempts than he has had in previous seasons, and his yards per attempt is down. So he has skyrocketed in attempts a little bit, but that comes with the territory for their offense, especially with their defense lacking and him playing from behind at times with a lot of the injuries and stuff going on. But Joshua Palmer had his first 100-yard receiving game this past week, so it shows that Justin Herbert can get people involved when he needs to.
For sure. So the next five are Geno Smith at 6, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, and Jalen Hurts. And then shout out to Jared Goff being number 11. Go Lions. and I mean, real quick, the Lions offense at the first 4 weeks of the season, it was insane. And it just it crumbled from there. It's just not the same anymore. But
no, unfortunately not. But
it's pretty bad.
But at least you know what they're capable of at this point.
Of course, right? Exactly.
Which might be good or bad because when they don't do it, you're like, well, I know what you're capable of.
Right. It's basically a college team at this point. Everyone in that team's so young, which is good in the long run. So for rushing yards, leading rushing is Derrick Henry with 870 yards. That's no surprise.
Yeah.
But Tennessee has had to ride on him. He has to carry that team to their 5-3 now. Almost beat the Chiefs, and well, here we are. It's 870 yards.
Yeah, I mean Derrick Henry, he averages like if it wasn't for his injury plagued seasons in the past, he would have led the league in rushing with his yards per game and how much he takes over the ball. Obviously, he gets a lot of attempts, but he's efficient with those attempts. Maybe not as efficient as some people with less attempts, getting like over 5-6 yards per carry. But he's efficient enough with how many he does get. He averages 4.8 yards per carry. That's very solid, especially with his 183 attempts this season. He's averaging 108 yards per game. He's back.
Oh yeah,
it's awesome to see.
And 870 yards and 9 touchdowns in those yards. So he is also scoring, which is good. He's fumbled once, and his longest run has been 56 yards. I remember that. 4.8 average, which is kind of low, but with 183 attempts, it's really hard to keep that high average.
I wouldn't consider it too low. Yeah.
Right. Nick Chubb, no surprise. We kind of predicted that in the
Mm-mm.
offseason that Nick Chubb was going to produce. 149 attempts for 841 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean he's one of the best, if not the best, running back in the NFL. I know Derrick Henry has more yards per carry or yards per him right now, but if you look at Nick Chubb's stats, he averages at least 5.5 yards per attempt for his career. He's done it every season. He's been in the NFL. He's efficient with the ball. He knows how to break tackles and get down the field and make big plays for that offense, which desperately needs it. And right now, he already has 10 touchdowns. He's averaging 105 yards per game. He's looking like the best running back in the NFL, especially on an offense that desperately needs it. And I think if their team did a little better, then he'd obviously get a lot more credit he does.
Yeah, I agree. Number 3 is Saquon Barkley at 779 yards. That's 163 attempts, 4.8 average for only 5 touchdowns.
Yeah. Yeah, you go ahead.
So I like the thing about the Giants offense is Dable likes Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, right? And so he's not going to run the ball all of the time.
Right.
Saquon Barkley does have 163 attempts, which is a lot of attempts for 8 games, but Daniel Jones likes to pass the ball. So that's where a lot of the scoring comes from. So with Saquon Barkley's 5 touchdowns, that doesn't mean he's not producing. That doesn't mean he's not scoring because he's bringing the ball down the field for Daniel Jones to have the opportunity to score. So I think that that's more efficient than actually putting those numbers up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when he started the season leading the league in yards, and he has like 180 receiving yards too. So add on that to Saquon's total with his yards from scrimmage. He's looking very good, and he's a dynamic back. He can go both ways. He can do everything on that offense. But yeah, I agree. Daniel Jones, he can run the ball as well. He can get some touchdowns. Which is fine. I mean, he's a good rushing quarterback unless he falls in the open field, which we don't have to talk about that game. But
Right.
But yeah, Saquon Barkley, one of the best running backs in the NFL. So it looks like
I
the top 3. I think this would be pretty predictable before the season.
Oh, definitely. I was definitely after Nick Chubb and Saquon Barkley when I was drafting my fantasy leagues. Starting the season. And Josh Jacobs, which I'm kind of surprised, is number 4 with 743 yards, 138 attempts and 6 touchdowns, 1 fumble lost, or not fumble lost, just fumbled. But it's about 92.9 yards per game. But a very bad record. Cannot bring his team up. I mean, they are having one of the worst seasons ever. Is the offense to blame though, or can they just not stop getting scored on? Because that Jacksonville game, I saw Davante Adams in the end zone. I know we're talking about rushing, but I saw Davante in the end zone a couple times, and they were scoring, they were producing on the field, but they could not stop Jacksonville at the end. But what does Josh Jacobs have to do with this?
Yeah. I mean, Raiders have blown 3 17-point leads, so that's a big reason for their loss. They get going. They have a good strong game happening, and then the second half they just crumble. Like Davante Adams didn't have any receiving yards in the second half against the Jaguars. But Josh Jacobs, he's been doing great for my fantasy team, so shout out to him. He's been helping me to some wins, and especially on basically no contract. He got his 5th-year option got declined, so the Raiders have some decisions to make on that. But I think Josh Jacobs is a bright spot for this team still, and I mean, I think we talked about it in yesterday's power ranking show. I think it's been poor coaching all around, and I think Josh Jacobs has proven himself this season.
I agree, and he's still a young guy, and so there's a lot of years ahead of him. If he stays with the Raiders, he can improve their run game, which will open up their pass game. Derek Carr can get to Davante Adams, but coaching's the issue. So get rid of whoever's calling those bad plays in the second half of that Jacksonville game and try to do something new. So this is number 5. Actually, he played 9 games, so he's the only one who has not had a bye week. Travis Etienne, with 120 attempts, 680 yards, and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, Travis Etienne. I mean, the fact that he's fifth, and I know he's played 9 games, but has he really played like a 9 games worth of being a starter at this point? No, because he was in a timeshare for a little bit, just getting
Right.
going. But James Robinson, they were like, "Oh, this guy we drafted in the first round is pretty good. Let's use him a little bit." And now he has 100 yards from scrimmage in each of his past 5 games. He's dynamic, so he's going to win a lot of fantasy teams their games. And I think if he continues this, I think he'll be on a lot of winning teams' rosters in fantasy. Just to go that fantasy route for him.
Yeah, I agree. And this is basically his rookie year. So we're almost talking about a rookie performance because he was out all season last year. So
Right.
the next 5, Dameon Pierce, number 6, Miles Sanders, number 7, Lamar Jackson, number 8, Ramondre Stevenson at number 9, and Dalvin Cook at number 10. And then another quarterback at number 11, Justin Fields.
Yeah,
So,
Lamar Jackson, he's 5th in career rushing yards by a quarterback now. So I mean that's awesome. And Justin Fields, shout out to him. He had 178 yards, which is the most in the regular season by a quarterback. Kaepernick having more in the playoff game, and when they were going on the playoff run with Kaepernick and the 49ers, he had I think it was like 180 something. So shout out to both of them.
Oh, for sure. And it's really crazy to see quarterbacks get more rushing yards than some starting running backs. It really comes to show that the quarterback position is evolving. And I think Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields are part of that evolution.
Yeah, people always ask about the longevity of a quarterback that does that much, but I mean, when it's working, it's working. I think you need to change it when they can't run anymore. But injuries happen on a day-to-day basis with any quarterback because they do get hit. So you just gotta avoid getting hit as much as possible. But if it's working, I think you need to continue it as much as possible. So,
agreed. So for receivers, Tyreek Hill is number 1, the only receiver with over 1,000 receiving yards this season, 100 targets on the dot, 14.5 average for only 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, not a lot of touchdowns, but he has the most receiving yards in the first 9 games of a season ever, passing or since the Super Bowl era. Passing Calvin Johnson, your Lions star that retired a little early, but we've both been there. But yeah, Tyreek Hill, he's been getting the ball a ton. Before the season, people were like, can he keep it up? Is Tua going to be accurate enough? Obviously, Tua is amazing as of now, and he can hold his ground. Does people at this point, we knew before the season if he played well, people were like, oh, he has weapons. If he didn't play well, they'd say he stunk. But I mean, weapons are needed on an offense, and Tyreek Hill, and obviously we can talk about Jaylen Waddle too at 5. Tua's been producing, and that has helped the wide receivers that are fast, that can get yards after the catch. So shout out to both of them.
It was funny at the beginning of the season, Tyreek Hill was praising Tua, and everyone laughed at him. And now he has over 1,000 yards because he's passing to him. And so I'm like, he kind of knew what he was talking about. 122.7 yards per game. That's impressive. So it does help that Tyreek Hill has not had a bye week yet. So that 1,000 yards is a game ahead of everyone else in the top 5, except Jaylen Waddle, of course. So take that into account. Jefferson, Diggs, and Kupp have all had a bye week. So Justin Jefferson is number 2, 59 receptions, 84 targets, 867 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So the Vikings are incredible this year. And they just added Hawkinson to their roster. So that offense is going to be electric. What do you think about Jefferson?
Yeah, it was unfortunate that Irv Smith is going to be out for a little while. But Justin Jefferson, he produces like crazy. Another stat for you, he has 19 games with 100-plus receiving yards in his first 3 seasons, which ties the most with Randy Moss and OBJ. And he's halfway through his 3rd season. So obviously Justin Jefferson, unless something crazy happens, he will surpass that, which is just crazy. So he's on a historical rate. We could have predicted he was going to be in the top 2. So yeah, 867. That's solid for Justin Jefferson, especially with a bye.
Yeah, and Kirk Cousins is doing a lot better than he was supposed to.
Right.
I'm a Michigan State fan, so to see Kirk Cousins go from Michigan State and do as good as he's doing, it's really fun to see. I know it's a
Yeah.
division rival, but I watched Kirk Cousins play for Michigan State, so that's fun to see.
Yeah.
Stefon Diggs is number 3, and Stefon Diggs is actually the only receiver who's in the top 5, whose quarterback is also in the top 5 for passing. 857 yards, 83 targets, 60 receptions, and 7 touchdowns. So he can catch the ball and make yards and also score with those yards. So Stefon Diggs is also tied for first for touchdowns for a receiver.
Yeah, he's dynamic in the red zone. He's dynamic down the field. What's it? We've already talked about Stefon Diggs a little bit with Josh Allen. He produces, and he's a great compliment to Josh Allen. And when the Vikings traded him, it worked out for both teams with Justin Jefferson and Stefon Diggs. So right back to back.
Yeah. So we discussed Diggs a lot when we talked about Josh Allen. So number 4 is Cooper Kupp with 813 yards, 72 receptions, 93 targets, and 6 touchdowns. So Matthew Stafford has definitely been off his game, but Cooper Kupp can still catch his throws and make yards. He's 4th with he did have a bye week. So what's going on with the Rams? And can Cooper Kupp still have a career season?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Rams are kind of hurting with Cooper Kupp being the only option. Everybody knowing it, we've seen how they play. Cooper Kupp is getting all the glory. They don't really have much of a rushing game, but I mean, Cooper Kupp is the only. I think Tyler Higbee's been playing really well, but I think Cooper Kupp has been the only reliable wide receiver. He's getting a majority of the targets, maybe too much at times. It seems like they're always going his way. Which can be an issue at times, but Cooper Kupp will make plays, so it's not necessarily bad, but I do think they need some other people to pass to.
Yeah, I agree. Cooper Kupp can't hold the team up. It's like, I mean, Stafford has a habit of sticking to one receiver, Calvin Johnson in the past, and then it was Golden Tate, and then it was Kenny Golladay. He has that habit of sticking with one receiver who he knows can catch the ball, but then once they get double covered, there can be no offense because he has no other receivers to catch.
Right.
Number 5, Jaylen Waddle. We talked about him a little bit when we talked about Tyreek Hill. Again, they haven't had a bye week, so it makes sense that he's up. But to have Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill both in the top 5 at the same time, best wide receiver duo in the league right now, it's pretty impressive. 812 yards, 70 targets, 47 receptions, twice as many touchdowns as Tyreek Hill with 6. So, I mean, Tua knows how to split passes between 2 amazing receivers. One coming off his rookie season, and Tyreek Hill having experience catching passes from Patrick Mahomes. So I think they could definitely take over the league as the best wide receiver duo.
Yeah, he's already matched his touchdown total from last season, Jaylen Waddle, and he's a couple hundred yards away from reaching that. Two cornerbacks, which is very helpful for him, especially early in his career. So, yeah, Jaylen Waddle will be, I think he'll be around the top 10, and Tyreek Hill will too for the majority of the season.
I have to agree.
Yeah.
The next 5, 6 is AJ Brown,
Yeah.
which he's been having some crazy games.
It's awesome.
Number 7, Travis Kelce, so a tight end's up there in the top 10. Devontae Adams, number 8. Chris Olave, number 9. Good, nice to have a rookie up there.
Yeah.
Mike Evans, number 10, and McLaurin is number 11. So there's our top 10 receivers, which no surprise. Chris Olave is a bit of a surprise, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But I mean, good for him and good for fantasy owners who picked him up in their rookie drafts for if you play Dynasty. Because he's been producing really well. He's been available for Andy Dalton right now. Jameis Winston has been out. So
yeah, and with Michael Thomas being gone for the majority of the rest of the season, I think Chris Olave will be the number 1 target for them.
I agree. So now we're going to move over to defense.
Woo.
So defensive stats. These are tackles. So we're going to talk about total tackles, which includes solo tackles as well. Jordyn Brooks with 90 for Seattle. So he has 0 sacks actually on the year, but he does have 90 tackles, which is a pretty good amount of tackles. And when you're someone like Jordyn Brooks, who can just grab a running back with one hand and he's on the ground, like you're a good linebacker if you're able to do that. So 90 tackles, leading the league. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, when you lead in the league in tackles, obviously you're getting to the players that have the ball very well, and you're taking them down, not missing too many tackles. So, um, shout out to him, and he's on a solid defense too. So,
Oh, for sure. And then he actually has one forced fumble and a fumble recovery. So definitely a good player to have on your defense. So that's 64 solo tackles and 26 assisted tackles. Um, Next is CJ Mosley of the New York Jets with 88 total tackles, 55 solo tackles, 33 assists, and one fumble recovery, and also 3 tackles for losses and 1 sack. So the New York Jets defense has been very, very good. Sauce Gardner is also to blame for that. Or also to credit for that. So, but yeah, CJ Mosley's been doing good at tackling, especially against the run game. So, yeah, Mosley of the Jets. What do you think?
yeah, he's always getting a lot of tackles. He had 168 last season, and he's had 4 other seasons with 100 plus tackles. So I'm sure. I mean, obviously, he's going to reach that again this season. He's a tackle machine, and I actually have him in a fantasy league where we have defensive players. So he's always racking up those points for me.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah,
Um, Foyesade Oluokun at
good job.
88, who's
Yeah,
actually tied with CJ Mosley and Roquan Smith with total tackles. But fun fact, he has the most tackles for losses with 7.
nice.
So to have that tackles for loss stat, that's pretty impressive because those are really important, especially in crucial situations, because you bring them back and then you have like a 3rd and 16, and you got to run the ball down the middle to try to get in a good punt position. So I think that's good on for Oluokun. Also tied is Roquan Smith for
Mm-hmm.
Chicago. Now plays for Baltimore.
Yeah,
Um, 88 tackles as well, 54 solo tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks though. So he is one of the sack leaders along with Derwin James Jr. of the Chargers, and
nice.
Tranquil and White from Tampa Bay. So he's tackling and sacking. So that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore knew what they were doing when they traded for him.
Yeah, for sure.
Any thoughts on Smith?
Yeah, he's a dynamic player, and he'll always. I think he'll be a big improvement for the Ravens. I think that he showed that in his first game. He's dynamic. Yeah, he's going to be higher in the tackle total.
Heck yeah. So here's your guy, Zaire
Yeah,
Franklin with 87 tackles. That's and a half of a sack for 3 yards and 7 tackles for loss.
yeah, he stepped in well for Shaq Leonard. He's getting those shoestring tackles when you need them. Obviously, the Colts haven't been good this season, but I think their defense has been pretty good for the majority part. I don't think they're really the issue on their side, even with some of the players out on the defensive side. But I do think our defense against the rushing, especially with Grover Stewart up front, I think it's been very well. And if you get past Grover Stewart somehow, you're going to run into Zaire Franklin and our linebackers. So I think he's been playing really well this season. So that was a good draft pick.
Yeah, I think that's good for the Colts, and he's got a lot of years ahead of him. I always take that in consideration. So if he's
Right,
producing this good now, imagine what he can do down the road.
for sure.
So next is sacks, and we all know who the sack leader is, Matthew Judon of the Patriots.
Yeah,
This guy has been insane. 71 yards of sacks. It's 11.5 sacks and 10 tackles for loss for 71 yards total. That's and 35 tackles. Um, which is low, but 11 sacks is not. So, Judon. What are your thoughts? He's insane.
yeah. He absolutely destroyed the Colts this past week. He had a few sacks, which definitely filled the stat sheet. He had 12.5 sacks last season, and he has 11.5 already now. He's a sack machine this year, and it's good to see him getting some respect, being on top of the leaderboard by so much too.
Yeah, I agree. And so he has not had a bye week. And he's played in every game, so he's had the opportunities to sack the quarterbacks. For he's had many opportunities. So
Right.
Justin Houston is second with 8.5 sacks for 55 yards and 7 tackles for losses, and he actually has an interception. So he's doing pretty good for Baltimore. So aside Roquan Smith, I mean Justin Houston and Roquan Smith are going to be a scary duo. So what do you think about Houston with 8.5 sacks?
Yeah, I mean, I was upset when the Colts let him go because he was producing so well on the defensive side of the ball, and he's 33 years old and he's still getting to the quarterback. So that's some good signs. And I mean, he's just been crazy for how long he's been playing for the 12 years or something he's been playing. So
Yeah. And tied with 8.5 is Darius Smith of the Vikings, which is, I mean, and 13 tackles for loss, 58 yards
nice.
total loss. So that's good. And I think that he's a really good linebacker. He's versatile, especially with that Vikings defense. I think he's a really important tool to be back there. Nick Bosa with 8.5 as well.
Yeah, which is
San
really good.
Francisco, which is the only defensive end in the top 5 for sacks,
Yeah, and he's missed a few games as well.
which
He
is even more
has
impressive.
right. He has 7 games played. So
I think he's a good. I mean, he's always been good since he got drafted, and I think
mhm.
if he can stay healthy, he's always going to be sacking the quarterbacks, no matter the offensive line, he's going to find a way around it. So Micah Parsons, no surprise, we predicted this in the offseason. 8
No, yeah,
sacks already on the season. He's nearing his sack number from last year. So we'll see
yeah.
how that finishes out.
Yeah, he already has 4 games with 2 sacks. So once he gets going, he gets going. Every other game, doesn't have any sacks. So when he gets a sack, just expect another one this season.
All right. So next we have interceptions, and then we'll finish it off. CJ Gardner-Johnson just got his 5th interception last week against Houston to lead the league. What do you think about Gardner-Johnson? Because he actually
Yeah,
has more interceptions this season than he's ever had in any other season, and it's only week 10.
yeah. In
What are
his
your thoughts?
previous 3 seasons combined, so he's been getting the ball when he needs to. It was a very good pickup for the Eagles. And the Eagles have a lot of playmakers on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary. So it's awesome to see him getting the ball and getting some recognition. I don't think anybody really had him pegged him to be on top of the leaderboard halfway through the season, but he's been playing really well. So
Yeah, I think he's been very important in the Eagles defense because he's everywhere.
yeah,
You see the ball thrown and he's there swatting it away or hitting the receiver. And so I think he's really important for Philadelphia's defense. Harrison Smith at 4 um, for the Vikings. So what do you think about Smith? I know he's been quiet. He was
yeah,
quiet last year, and now he's like showing up. So
yeah. I mean, he always plays well. He's one of the leaders of the Vikings defense, and I'm sure they never want to get rid of him. But it's good to see him getting the ball. Obviously, he's always going to be making plays, whether or not he has the stat sheet to show it. But I think he's dynamic, and he'll always benefit the Vikings defense.
I agree. And Jordan Poyer, along with the explosive Buffalo defense, he has been a crucial part of that defense with also
Yeah,
4 interceptions. That one's pretty straightforward. Any thoughts?
nothing really. I think he might have missed. I believe he's missed a game, if I'm not correct.
Yeah, he's played only 5 games.
Yeah, so he's only played in 5 games, and he has 4 picks.
That's
He's
pretty impressive.
yeah, a good player on a good defense. So that's good to see.
Yeah, Von Bell of Cincinnati. It's funny. His 4th interception was the one where it bounced off the receiver's helmet and he caught it.
Oh yeah,
That was a fun play. But yeah, 4 interceptions. So he's been all right. The fun fact: the top 5 are all safeties. So
yeah.
a lot of times you'll see cornerbacks getting a lot of the interceptions because they play
It's
man to
interesting. I
man.
didn't think about that. Yeah,
But the safeties, you're in the middle of the field. You can go this way or that way. You see the ball and you're going to go for the ball. They're so good at watching the quarterback's eyes to see
yeah.
where he's looking, where he's going to throw it. And a lot of these guys like Gardner-Johnson, Harrison Smith, they know how to watch the quarterback to see where he's going to throw the ball. And you're free to go anywhere. You're not man to man. You're playing the zone. And so you're
Hmm.
able to go wherever that ball is going to end up and pick it off. And Vonn Bell is a really good example of that.
Yeah, you have to be able to. You're not. Yeah, like you said, most of the time you're not man to man. So when you're in the backfield, you have to be able to read the play as it's happening. And these players are tremendous at doing that.
I agree. And then Eddie Jackson is number 5 with also 4 interceptions for Chicago.
Yeah, he's a bright spot for that defense.
So that's all the top 5 stats I have so far. We could go over more if we wanted to, like pick sixes. The guys who have pick sixes are there's a lot of pick sixes this season. Wow. All right, we'll have to go over that next time. That's a lot. So yeah, that's it for me. Do you have any stats you want to share? Maybe something you
Uh,
put on your Twitter page.
yeah, I've went over a lot of them throughout the broadcast. Tom Brady, he has the most career game winning drives in NFL history now at 55, passing Peyton Manning. So
Oh,
he
interesting.
was psyched about that with some of this. I can't repeat some of the stuff he said in this press conference, but that might be a turning point while they're headed to Germany this week to face off against the Seahawks. Lamar Jackson, I said he was 5th in rushing yards now for a quarterback, so he'll keep climbing there. Uh, let's see, Joe Mixon, he had a great game. He's the 6th running back since 2000 to have 5 touchdowns in a game. So that's,
Wow. Okay.
I mean, and he had 55.1 fantasy points PPR wise, and that was the 12th most by a running back since at least 1950. So he had a tremendous performance as well.
So real quick, I want you to guess who is leading in scoring. Who has the most points out of any player in the NFL right now?
Oh geez, is it a kicker?
Yes.
Who do you? I think you might have told me. Was it Suka? With
No, it's Justin Tucker.
oh, it is Justin Tucker.
Yep. No, Suckup
Jeez,
has the most field goals made.
most field goals. Okay.
But yeah, Justin Tucker has 79 points scored.
Jeez.
And he's actually tied for 79 points and the same amount made and attempted with Jason Myers. And so
That's
they have like
crazy.
the same exact stat. So
I mean,
that's a fun fact. He's leading in scoring right now.
he's definitely like the the evidence to show that you should draft a kicker in the draft. That's he's the guy that's like, oh, we want a Justin Tucker type. So that's what people are looking for at this point. He's one of the
Right.
best kickers in NFL history. He's up to par with all of them.
I agree. So we're nearing 45 minutes on the broadcast. I want to just say any more stats. Let me know. I think this went really well.
Yeah.
I think it was entertaining. If anyone likes stats, and this is a fun way to discuss each player, what their stats are, and then maybe even next week we'll go more in depth with stuff like extra points made for kickers. I know I
Yeah.
want to talk about kicking stats more because they're such a crucial part. Special team stats. We could talk about fumbles, interceptions, and maybe even get into offensive line stuff, pancake
yeah.
blocks and stuff, sacks allowed and everything. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the opportunities are endless. This is going to be a stat-based podcast. So, any last thoughts?
Yeah, like even with passing yards, you could throw in passer rating. I know people are iffy on passer rating. It doesn't always tell the whole story yet with some of the players, but passer rating, pass yards per attempt, air yards, you can always look at that. There's a lot of different things to look at with passers and stuff, and obviously yards don't tell the whole story, but we kind of gave context around that, which always helps. And especially with bye weeks going on, people always, if I post like the yardage, people are like, oh, he's on a bye week and stuff. But even with yards per game, the highest there. People have also not played a lot of games with that, and they qualify for that stat as well. So I mean, it goes all over the place.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm excited to see what we come up with. So
Yeah.
that's that. This has been 11 Yards Podcast. I'll
Thanks,
see you next
guys.
time.